Josie, how do you pronounce your last name?
Marcellino.
Marcellino.
I pronounce it incorrectly. It technically should be said Marcellino. That's the Italian way.
Marcellino.
I don't say it like that.
Okay, so I know you were in Peru. I assumed you were South American. Are you? Is
No.
Okay.
No, I've actually been to... God, the majority is actually South American countries out of all the places that I've traveled, but that's just been by circumstance.
Okay.
But no, Italy was the first country that I ever went to, and that is where my father's parents are from, and then my mom's parents are from Ireland.
Like, how do you by circumstance end up in? Are you like part of a cartel? Are you?
I get questioned a lot at Border Patrol. No, so I work in television production.
Okay.
And the show that I work for is filmed all over the world. And
Gotcha.
so one of the perks is that they offer up every year. Usually they're like, does anybody want a location scout? And a lot of the people that work for the company are like, you know, married with children and houses and responsibilities. And I'm like, I'm 28 years old and I can still be a little bit insane. Let's go. Let's go to this, you know, random country and just have fun for a little bit. So yeah, that's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
That sounds very cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So sick.
I do it in the winter so that way I can escape the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's wild because you have a look that is so ethnically ambiguous.
Thank
that
you.
The moment I found out that you were in Peru, I was like, oh, she's Peruvian.
No, I'm just white.
Right?
I'm just white.
I spent this whole week like, oh, it's probably pronounced Josie. Let me get really good at this J before she gets here.
I was wondering why you were.
The R. I've been rolling the R. Josie Marcellino. I'm like, how do you Josie Marcellino? Yeah. So okay.
I was wondering why downstairs you were like very confused by when you were like, is it Josie? And I was like, yeah, exactly how it's spelled.
Okay. All right. Well, that's not fun. I've been practicing so hard.
When I go to Spanish speaking places, I always tell them, I'm like, mi nombre es Josefina. That's what I say. Because it's Josephine is what Josie's short for, but they'll look at you sometimes like...
That's what I've been practicing.
Yeah. Should we do that this whole podcast?
We can pretend that I'm Spanish.
I did not get that good at it. By the way, I don't want to try it anymore.
Yeah.
It goes like if they see my name down there and they don't speak any English, I will either get Yossi or Hosi, and I'm like,
I knew not to say that. That was rude.
It's not Hosi.
That seemed rude.
Promise.
Because I consider that because we do jujitsu, so we're around a lot of those J's, So I was like, don't say Hosi. She was probably made fun of as a kid because she's a girl.
I got Jose so much as a kid. Like even now, sometimes I'll go to Starbucks and they're like Jose, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. Hi. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Jose is like, okay, I'll let her have it. I guess I'll order another. No, it's okay. I'll order another one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Josie, one of the things that we've been doing before we start this podcast is do you meditate, by the way?
Not as much as I should, but I do.
Okay. So we've been taking like a couple meditative breaths. Ansley has this this breathing technique. It's just like a couple breaths. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what somebody's ethics are. You never know. All right.
All right. So we're going to breathe like in a box. So we're going to breathe in for 4. Breathe in. Hold it for 4. Breathe out. Hold for 4. Breathe in for 4. Hold. Out. Hold. And we're ready.
Okay.
It's funny. That's actually the exact one that I do.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so that's perfect.
Yeah. I always forget to let the people know at home that they should be breathing in the nose and out the mouth.
Oh, yes.
I hope they weren't, I hope they did it. I hope they did it.
Next time they'll get it.
All right. Well, we're ready to start this thing.
Yes.
All right, let's go. All right, so the Chakra Poppers, once again, we're doing it once again. Ansley and Sidney, we're back.
Yes.
And today our guest is none other than the Josie Marcellino.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah, you did great.
That would have been so embarrassing after all that.
Yes.
I messed it up. So, Josie, are you familiar with what we do on this podcast at all?
So I've seen clips of it, but not the whole thing.
All right, cool.
So I'm going in a little bit blind.
I think I prefer that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically the premise of this podcast is to prove that anybody could potentially reach enlightenment, no matter who they are, what type of sense of humor they have. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pop open your chakras and take you through the process of enlightenment. And hopefully by the end of this podcast, something feels different. And if not, maybe us doing it and the people listening at home can edge themselves closer to enlightenment themselves. Or just being the best us we can be.
I'm into it. Let's do it. Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready.
Man, what if she was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I just got back I've been traveling for like 2 days. Like, no.
I don't want to.
No, I don't want to do that.
No, I'm like at the right amount of tiredness. You can totally just crack into my shell very easily. This will be great.
Yeah, we're invited in.
Yeah.
Perfect. That was an invitation.
Yeah, we're like vampires. Once you invite us, we're allowed. Like, you can't take that back.
I love it.
All right. So, Josie, everybody actually gets the same questions on this podcast.
Okay.
All right. And the first question is just an icebreaker question. Ansley, take it away.
So, Josie, what situation or event did you learn the most information from?
Oh my God, ever in my life?
Yes.
Oh no.
It's just an icebreaker.
That's the ice. That's the whole. That's global warming. That's not an icebreaker. Damn. I think. Okay. Well, there's two answers to that, and I'm gonna go with the one that's not gonna ruin all the viewers' days.
Okay.
But so actually, relating back to travel, this was before I got this job. Mm-hmm. This was back in March of 2020. I was traveling solo to New Zealand, and I was supposed to be over there for like another month. And then this thing called coronavirus came around, which was weird. And I was so like, they hype up everything, all that it's probably fine. And then I was over there, and they made an announcement on like the local news in New Zealand. They're like, so all flights will be grounded as of this day. So if you're a foreigner, either call your consulate and get ready to shelter in place or leave. And I was like, okay, I should probably go home. So I went to the airport, and when I went to the airport, it was just absolute madness everywhere. Like, it was just so many foreigners, because it's mostly, New Zealand is majority just tourism.
Yeah.
So there were just people from all over the world, and nobody really knew what this thing was, and everybody was visibly shaken and kind of scared, and I was just kind of isolated and by myself, and I managed to get up to the counter, and they got me on a flight. They got me on the last flight out of America, and so I was like, big sigh of relief. The girl beside me at the counter was French, and she didn't speak a lot of English, and she was like, I need a ticket to Paris. I have to go like and be with my sister. And they were like, well, we have one seat on one flight left, and it's $8,000.
Whoa.
And she just had her, like, she was clearly a backpacker, and she's like, I don't have that. And they're like, okay, well, then you have to call the embassy, but the embassy's closed now. So
now you live here.
Yeah. Get right. And it just, I don't know, that whole, like, I just remember the day in that airport so vividly, because it was like, while there was just all this chaos around me, like, I knew I was safe in that moment, but everybody else was just like scared and frazzled. And I don't know, it just kind of made me suddenly realize, like, oh, everybody has basically like the same want. Like, everybody just wants to feel safe, and everybody wants to get home, and everybody wants to be with their loved ones. And when we're all kind of like faced with this thing that doesn't care who you are or what your background is or how much money you have or anything, like, it's an illness. It's going to get you if it's going to get you. It was just kind of this, I don't know, it was a very eye-opening experience to like see humanity in a different way, I guess, as like a collective.
Yeah.
That's also wild. It sounds like it must have felt like a movie where, like,
it did,
you know, like the end of the world is coming, and it's like you were like in the airport like during it.
Yeah, for sure. And it was, things were already closed here in the US because it hit New Zealand much later. So I had people back home telling me like, no, like, you don't understand, everything is closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, it can't be that bad. And then when I landed in LAX and there were like 20 people in there at that point, I'm like, oh, it's different.
Yeah.
Things are different now.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, well, so normally with this, you answered that question so beautifully, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank
normally,
you.
Yeah, because normally I have to tell people after they, go on their answer I have to ask them to distill what it was, and you already did that. Like, everybody has the same wants, and everybody wants to feel safe. And but I will say this. I don't think embassies should ever be allowed to close. They should be 24/7.
Yeah, 100. And I've seen so many instances now, like in my continued travels, of like people running into actual problems with their passport or their just all of their belongings suddenly getting stolen, things like that. And it's like some of these embassies have the weirdest hours or just don't answer the phone, or they're like, okay, the embassy's over here in the capital city and you're out here in the jungle and there's really no way to get back and forth other than the plane, but you're gonna need your passport to get on that plane and you don't have your passport and they're not answering the phone and you don't speak the language anyway, so good luck, I guess. Try calling back to the US, but they might not pick up because they're a government agency. And
that's wild.
It's my worst nightmare.
It's crazy.
That's another reason not to leave the country.
That's why I don't leave the country.
It's crazy.
That is now reason number one that I don't leave the country.
I will say, if you're an American, you're going to have an easier time than any other country. Maybe Canada has it pretty easy, just in terms of like the availability of an embassy or a consulate in whatever country you're traveling in. But like some of the smaller countries, you're just screwed. They might not even have one.
Yeah, I don't have enough travel experience to even know that the word consulate is a real word. Like I thought that was just something in spy movies. I didn't know. You're the only person I think I've ever heard say that word out of a movie. You know what I mean? That's like it's pretty wild.
That's
have
high
you been
praise.
to a lot of embassies and consulates?
I have not.
Hold on, Ansley. What's the consulate?
It's a government office where they do business.
The consulate is like the people that work in the
Okay.
That's your representative.
Yeah, but I admitted it. Yeah. So
Damn, I could have made anything up there.
You sure could have.
Shit.
You sure could have.
Let's go back.
Yeah, you need to start taking liberties during this podcast. It's all on you. But so you've been to a lot of embassies in consulates?
I've been lucky enough to really not need the help of many. So I've made some phone calls, but for the most part, like my travels have been okay and safe and things have worked out. The most frightening experience was, the most frightening experience that I would think would involve the embassy was New Zealand and like the coronavirus hitting. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to not need it, but I've seen many of people come unprepared or have unexpected things happen, and then they have to call.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel the Italianness because I'm like, I follow hands when people hand talk.
Oh yeah,
and your gestures are just Italian.
Yeah, they're gonna.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, these are gonna move the whole podcast.
I got it. Also, the whole time you were talking, every time you mentioned the country, I'm like, she looks like she could be a Kiwi. She looks like she could be French.
I get French all the time when I travel, like to the point where sometimes I'll go to, like, if I'm at a touristy thing. I was in the Vatican back when I was like 16, and I brought up my stuff, which was in English. Mm-hmm. I brought up gifts to the gift shop, like cashier, and he started speaking to me in French, and I just stared at him, and he stared back, and he's like, okay, well, I guess you're not French. What are you? And I was like, American. I get mistaken for French all the time. I don't know if it's because Josephine is like technically a French name.
It is a French name.
But it's like,
it's
used enough. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. And once again, just to remind people, the thing it was that she learned was that everybody has the same wants and everybody wants to feel safe. And were there other things that you said? I don't want to retard your answer. I apologize.
You're fine. No, yeah. I think it's basically it. Just like once you take away all the outside stuff and the stuff, that makes us different in the world, we all kind of have the same like inner desire and core needs. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. And now we're going to get around to popping open these chakras. And just to give you a heads up, the first chakra, the root chakra, is located in and around the butthole. Are you okay with that?
What do we do to open it up?
We just talk.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Only person who's asked that type of
question. I know.
Everybody else is like, yeah, get in there. We had a person on their knees on the chair, bent over, like, please. I brought my own Vaseline. Let's go.
I can guess who that was.
Yeah. All right, so Ace, take it away.
All right, so Josie, how did you learn to overcome fear?
I don't think I did. I think I'm still very much living with it. No, I mean, I think if anything, the only thing that's helped with fear is like Vyvanse or Ativan. Like actually, like this is some medication, but I'm a very anxious person.
Okay.
The only way that I don't think it's necessarily overcoming it. I think I just sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm going to be scared through all of this, but I got to do it because I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's not so much an overcoming of fear. It's just a tenacity to bulldoze right through it.
So I have to ask you, because I would say that you are kind of living my fear traveling out of the country as often as you do. So how do you do that?
That, I guess, yeah, there was fear. The first time that I ever solo traveled. Mm-hmm. I got off the plane like 3 times. I hate flying. I hate flying. I'm not a good flyer. I am scared when turbulence happens, anything like that. I don't like it. So I remember I like got off the plane like 3 times and the pilot was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, yeah, all right, I'm coming. And I went and I ended up, I made it to San Francisco. And then before the flight out of the country, I was like calling my best friend. I was calling my mom. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Should I even do this? And they were just encouraging and they were like, you should do it. And I just sucked it up and went. And as soon as I got there, then I realized like, oh, okay, the hardest part is over. And this specifically, New Zealand's my favorite place that I've ever traveled. And I instantly very much felt like I was home when I went there. So I lucked out in that capacity, because if I had traveled somewhere else as my first time, like maybe I wouldn't have had that and I wouldn't have instantly felt as comfortable as I did. But yeah, it was just sort of having like the tenacity of like, all right, well, I've signed up for it, so I'm going to do it. And it was the same thing with stand-up. It's the same thing with, and then once you do it, you realize like, oh, the reward is actually worth it. And then that's what keeps me going back to do other things that I'm afraid of.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. So can you remember a time in your life, and it could be any time in your life, but can you remember a time in your life when you were the most scared?
Oh my God. The most. That's hard. Because again, I'm a very anxious person. I'm scared more than I'm not scared, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I've probably been the most scared when not even like facing a situation, more so just facing my own. Like there have been times where I've had to face, mental health stuff. And I would say that that's scarier than anything. Because it's like, yeah, I've sled down a volcano before. That was terrifying. But I could identify...
What the fuck are you trying to do to me? This is insane. I'm starting to sweat in my own house, Josie. Like, what is happening here? Oh my God.
There is a black sand volcano in Nicaragua called Cerro Negro, and it is the only volcano in the entire world that you can actually like hop on a wooden sled and you can sled down it. You can sled down like the ash.
Like a toboggan?
Kind of, yeah.
Acting fancy over here. I know the word toboggan.
All right, now what's a toboggan?
I don't know. What's a toboggan with you? Yeah.
And that, like, I was terrified to do that, but I could identify what I was afraid of to you. If you ask me, I'm like, okay, well, it's tall and it's a volcano and I don't like going at high speeds, and I'm terrified that I'm going to break every bone on my body or just fall to my death. Like those are all very obvious fears.
Very legitimate.
And I know how to take away any of that, and it's just don't go and do this.
That's what I do.
Or get to the bottom. Like there's 2 ways to make that fear stop.
Yeah.
But when it's your own mental health and you like don't have an understanding of what's going on and you don't know how to make it stop, especially when I was younger and I was kind of figuring out what was going on with me. It was like my parents didn't really have an understanding of what was happening and nobody else could tell me what was going on. So I'm like, I hope that it's like a physical ailment that you could just like take a pill and you'll be better.
Yeah.
Or like just, get more sleep or something like that. But when it's your brain, it's sort of a multifaceted thing that you really got to dig into. So that I would say is the scariest.
Do you mind, is it like anxiety or bipolar? Do you mind like what you dealt?
I'll go into it. I'm an open book.
Okay.
I know that you were a comedian and you just seem like you're naturally a fun and funny person. So I don't want to like go too dark and like ruin your podcast and be like, what the fuck was up with that chick?
No, you can say whatever you want, but we're going to be immature about it.
No, that's perfect. That is how I handle everything in life. So that's great. So I've always had anxiety. I do have ADHD. Those are the two things that have kind of been concurrent throughout my entire life. But I also have PTSD, and that really became activated when I was like 16 years old. And I started experiencing the side effects of like what that was. And I didn't have any capacity to understand it. And neither did like anyone else in my family or immediate circle. So I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. And I wasn't, which was great. But at the time, it was like, I'm really like about to snap and just lose it. Like I really thought I was just going insane.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like somebody who grew up in like maybe a tumultuous family, but didn't realize how bad it was until you got older.
So my family, we're dysfunctional, but I wouldn't say the PTSD is not from them.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but
okay. So probably from the number 2 thing that you didn't mention up front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, my family very dysfunctional, but all good people. Like
Gotcha.
nobody in my family is like abusive or anything like that. Thank God.
That's
I am
fortunate.
very blessed with like a good set of parents and siblings and all, and extended family. But it was just like nobody had ever dealt with anything like this. And my like I said, my father's parents are from Italy, my mom's parents are from Ireland, so Catholic as hell. And like a Catholic stereotype is just you keep all your problems like right inside of here, and then one day you'll just die, and then that's how they're solved.
Yeah.
So you don't like, there's no talking about anything, and like especially mental health growing up, that was just never something that's a very like hush topic. So there just wasn't a lot of resources, so it took a while to understand.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
And I would consider that a fear chakra popped.
Yes.
That was probably the first time that I felt my fear chakra pop at the same time.
I said sled down volcano, and I watched you start sweating.
Yeah, that was my butt cheek clenched the chair. I was like, oh my God, oh no. Yeah, that was wild. I'm going to move away from this question as soon as possible. All right, Ace, take it away.
All right, we're to the pelvis chakra next. So, Josie, this is a segment we like to call My Bad. It's an opportunity for you to apologize to a person, place, or thing in order to set your karma back to neutral.
Okay.
Wow, so we just got done doing Josie's Patreon episode, and it was absolutely spectacular. If you're having a good time here, you're going to have an even better time there. And I'll tell you what the title is right now. It's called Be Gay and Steal. So you can only imagine what that's going to be. $1 gets you all of our exclusive content on our Patreon, which not only includes the counter to this episode that you're watching right now, which we call Chakra Poppers After Dark, but we also do some fight commentary and analysis on Ansley's Jiu-Jitsu matches. Let me take that back. On world champion Ansley's Jiu-Jitsu matches, right? Also, be sure to check out Josie on all of her social media, and she will be at Magooby's Joke House in Timonium. January.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So the last weekend of January.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Check her out. She'll be there. And Josie, did you have a good time?
I had a great time, and you should buy the Patreon. So we opened up talking about butthole. That's great.
Absolutely.
That's great.
It's the best. Right? And now we are going to get back to this episode and find out who or what Josie has to apologize to.
Who do I want to apologize to? I just had to apologize to a receptionist in Peru because I got very angry because I was exhausted and hungry, and I kind of blew up. That's a good one.
Well, now I'm jealous. You got to blow up at a receptionist in Peru. Blowing up at a receptionist, that's kind of my thing.
Almost worth traveling for.
Almost worth it.
The Italian part comes out so hard. Like I get very like New Jersey, like what the fuck are you doing right now? Like when I have to, deal with somebody who's difficult in customer service, but then I'm like, I'm so sorry. You didn't, even if you're stupid, it's not your fault.
Great line.
I've been on the other end of that. I get it.
Yeah.
I think I'm decent at apologizing. I'll even take the lead on that when it's not necessarily like, you know, if we both need to apologize, I'll do it even if the other person doesn't, because I don't like having that out there. God, I would probably have to go back to like, you know what? I know exactly who I would go back to. There was a girl in my elementary, middle, and high school. She, you know, kind of went the whole way, and she had some behavioral issues, and I was like so shy and just meek when I was younger. Like elementary and middle school, I was very quiet. I was very like just introverted. And her and I like butt heads a lot. And we ended up saying some really nasty things to each other. And like I said, she bit a gym teacher once. Like she has some behavioral issues. But now I know, like it was revealed later what had happened to her to kind of make her like that. And I'm like, oh, I just didn't get it. I was like, you know, an elementary school student, and I didn't know what was going on with
Those are hard dots to connect.
Exactly. I was 8. I didn't know why she was in foster care, but she was. And so like looking.
She bit her parents.
Yeah.
Well, you know, but yeah, so I think like it would be something like that where like I didn't really understand what was going on with somebody, but I may have like contributed to like hurting them. So something like her.
Girl.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
You don't have to dox her completely, but does she have a first name you want to? And you can look into the camera and give an apology if you'd like to.
I'm only gonna refrain from doing that because I know right now she's going through a particularly hard time trying to get her children back.
You still know, like you're still aware of what's happening in her life?
I like to keep tabs on people. I get nosy and I'm like, what is this person up to? And in my hometown, it's either you're married and you're successful with a beautiful family, or you are on every drug that is out there. And yeah, like, I don't know. I went to high school with a girl who's like, filmed herself boofing heroin, and that went viral on the internet. So
okay, can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
Ansley, what's boofing?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You got a sweater on. You look like a nice mom. And then I come in here and I'm like, let me teach you about boofing on a Thursday.
Based on that, I think it goes up your butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah, I do think you were leading the witness a little bit, but good job. That was a good job.
I feel like Mr. Rogers, but for degenerates.
All right, well, that's a pelvis chakra pop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The apology is out there. We're not going to get too specific, but she's sorry.
Yes.
All right, Ace, keep it moving.
All right, we're to the gut chakra. So, Josie, how do you move past disappointment, either in yourself or in loved ones?
Oh my God, these are so deep.
Yeah.
How do I move past the disappointment? I think in other people, I'm quick to forgive. Like, I don't, God, this is going to sound like the most like pretentious answer in the world. I've just been in a lot of therapy. I think now in a 28-year-old version of myself, this was not true like even 5 years ago, but I think now, especially with loved ones, I can kind of have an understanding of why someone is the way they are, or why they do the things that they do that maybe don't jive with me or that I don't appreciate. And I can recognize, especially if it's not done out of malice, that it's, you know, you're also presenting everything that you've ever gone through, and you see the world through your own eyes, and you're going to react based on what you've been through in your life, which I probably don't know everything about. So I try to give people a little bit more grace there. With myself, that's hard, because I don't know that I am the best at moving past that disappointment within myself. I don't give myself the same grace that I give other people. So with other people, yeah, I can be like, you know, you've been through X, Y, or Z in your life, and there's probably more letters that I don't know about, and I'll give you some grace, unless you're being like a dickhead for the sake of being a dickhead. Like, if you actually are just a malicious person and trying to hurt somebody, then I don't jive with that. But if you just honestly make a mistake, or we're not seeing things in the same light, then that's okay. I can give you grace, but I have a harder time with myself. It takes a longer time for me to forgive years. I have to essentially become a different version of myself before I can forgive the past version.
Okay. That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how
you're growing from it.
Yeah,
you're learning from it, and then you can be like, okay.
Yeah. So you grow out of that phase, and you can look back to a phase and say, well, that was that.
Yeah.
So you almost are giving yourself the same grace, in a sense, but you're doing it in real time. Where instead of you saying like they were going through X, Y, and Z, you're like, well, I'm different now. I was different then.
Yeah, I think while I'm in, so I guess a good example, I've lost like 70 pounds. I used to be morbidly obese, and at the time, and since when I've like backslid or anything, like just in part of that, when I've been unhealthy, I don't have grace for myself in that moment. If I'm disappointed, I'm going to be disappointed until I start making progress again. Mm-hmm. Or, like once I lost 50 pounds, I could look at myself 50 pounds ago and be like, oh, I was doing this because of this, but now I'm better. So I forgive that version of myself. Yeah,
but when food is delicious.
Well, yes, yes, it is. But yeah, when you're in that, I'm just like, oh, I'm just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then, so it takes crossing over to the other side before I can have some forgiveness. Okay.
So usually in this section, I always like to ask the question, was there a time when maybe you did a sport or some type of performance art where you had a disappointment that kind of still lingers?
Well, definitely not sport, because like I said, I used to be like 70 pounds heavier, so it wasn't a lot of sport going on.
I almost didn't ask that part of the question.
Nah, I was just mostly asthma and fat, and so there wasn't a lot of sport happening. But I think, for performance, sure, absolutely. I mean, there's things, like there's comedy gigs that I didn't get, or like, there's definitely times that I've bombed that I've been like, should I just like kill myself on the way home? Like, what the fuck? That was awful. Mm-hmm. And I think for most of those, especially like for any kind of bomb, then once you get back up, you're fine.
Yeah.
Again. I mean, there's definitely like still disappointments in there, where it's like, I wish I had gotten that thing, but it's not like a relentless kind of beating myself up for it still.
Yeah. Did you do maybe plays or something when you were younger?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was
and
a drama kid.
And you just nailed it every time as a drama kid?
Performance-wise, there was never one where I was like, oh, that like absolutely destroyed me, because I don't think I took it quite that seriously.
That makes sense.
But there were definitely things where I'm like, I want this role so bad, and then not getting it in the audition and getting something else. But by that point, by the time we were on stage, I was like, well, this is my role, so let's just have fun with it.
Okay, so now I'm curious about what was an iconic role that you wanted, and then what did you end up with?
All right, so back in elementary school, our guidance counselor definitely dropped acid like a lot, and he thought that it would be cool for every year the fifth graders to put on a legit Shakespearean play, like in the full unredacted Shakespearean language, which was so stupid, but so fun in retrospect. And so my year, we did Macbeth, a very child-friendly story. And I wanted Lady Macbeth for that, and I've like rehearsed and everything else, and just was practicing for so long for the auditions. And I gave a great audition, but I ended up being the witch that he like talks to and sees. And looking back, I nailed that role, and I understand why they gave me that, because I went into the performance like very just loud and forward and like not shy at all. And he was like, oh yeah, let's throw her in some scary makeup, let's make her a witch. But when I was 10, I was like, that's all I wanted. Like, no, I was so heartbroken over it.
Is Macbeth the one where he goes crazy and his daughters have to take care of him? Or that's Othello?
I think that's Othello too. But Hamlet, he goes crazy. He's like seeing his father's ghost and he's going crazy. Macbeth is, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are like, yo, we could be king. And then they kill the king, and then somebody else takes his place, and they're like, well, I guess we got to kill, like, everybody until we become in line for the throne, because a witch came and saw Macbeth, and we're like, you could be king. And then he told his wife, and she was like, why aren't you king? Actually, I should be queen. So then they murder a bunch of people, and then they do go crazy. And she, like, starts seeing blood all over herself, and then she, like, kills herself, and it's a whole It's a whole deal. He like can't kill the king, and she's like, "You're a pussy. I'm gonna go do it." And so then she's committing murder, and he's talking to witches, and that's a lot of Shakespeare. It's just people are going nuts.
Yeah, great for kids.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's great for kids.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. That is a that was a gut chakra popped open, and you're crushing this, by the way.
Sweet. How many chakras are there? I feel like I'm winning my chakras.
You are.
Sweet.
We're gonna have to put your jersey in the rafters there.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so that was the third, and we go to 7.
Sweet.
Yeah. So Ace, take it away.
We are to the heart chakra now. So Josie, what have you learned from grief?
Yeah. That's a tough one. I think the biggest thing that I've learned out of grief is to voice my appreciation for people while they're here. In two senses, I think that's really stuck out. When I was 16, I lost one of my closest friends to a car accident, and the night that happened, we were both working in the mall in our little small town, and I really had to pee. I was like closing up shop. I was going to go out with my bosses. We were going to get dinner, and I really had to pee, so I had to run to the other end of the mall, and we were both going through the service entrance, and she was going one way, I was going the other, and I was like, I can't talk, and she was like so excited to see me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't talk, but like we're going to hang out because it was spring break. Like that was the Sunday before spring break started, but I was like, but we definitely have to hang out, like spring break, I'll see you soon. And I just ran and went to the bathroom, and then that night, like that was the last I ever saw of her. And so I think about that a lot, of like, damn, if I had just taken like 2 more minutes to just, I mean, obviously you can't know, but I would have savored 30 seconds had I known.
I have to say this before you move on, because my brain is stuck on trying to make a Final Destination joke, but it's a Final Urination. But I just had to say it that way so that it wasn't.
You can, anything that I say, it doesn't matter how dark it is, you can make whatever joke you want. I try to get my therapist to do that, and she's just like, how do you feel? I'm like, bitch, I need to make you laugh at my pain. Come on, she cracks a smile sometimes.
So
I'm like,
I'm
winning.
Final Urination, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and then what was the other thing?
When my grandma passed away a couple years later, I was 19. She was in her 80s, and my dad has always said, he's like, you don't want a lot of people at your funeral, because that means you outlived everybody. That means you had a long and fulfilled life. If it's just like, kind of your close family at that point, that's your descendants basically. And my grandma, when she was alive, it was very sad. She would talk about how like all of her friends had passed. She lost her parents very young. She lost her siblings, and she lost the majority of her friends before she left, or like her, the people that she had kind of grown up with. And when she died, her funeral, it was like over 200 people. And at the reception for the, afterwards, people went up and spoke, and every single person was equally moved by like how, no matter how long it had really been, she always sent them a birthday card. She always sent them something at Christmas. If she saw something in the newspaper that reminded her of you, she would clip it and send it to you in the mail. And everybody that talked about her was like, she just made you feel like you were special and like you did matter. And it was just, it didn't matter what was going on in your life. You just kind of knew that like someone out there like cared and thought about you. And that meant a lot to me, and that was really sweet. And her and I were very much like kindred spirits. So I wanted to continue to kind of emulate that. So between those two instances, I've made it a point to really make sure that people know what they mean to me.
That was very sweet, and I'll have to say this because I'm pretty sure you're thinking the same thing, but that kind of reminds me of Ansley's mother passed away a few years ago, and she was very much that type of magical person. Like everybody had with her like a super special, unique bond. And it was like
awesome.
Everybody had that bond, and like nobody was at the funeral, of course, jealous. Like, no, you didn't have it. I had that. It was like, of course you did. Of course you also had that.
Right.
So yeah, that's a pretty awesome person to be around.
Yeah, and it's sweet when you find somebody like that, because it's like even though it's like everybody has this special bond, it's like each of those bonds are unique. in their own way. Like there's no two bonds that she has with somebody that are the same.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome. So
I think
that's awesome that you had that.
My mom's is going to be all pretty much the same or like similar. Like, oh, she owed me money or like she keyed my car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of
That's one way to get people to go to your funeral. Yeah, that's one way for a big turnout.
To hit up your children to see if they can get that money back.
She's owed me $50 for like 40 years. There's crazy interest on that shit.
Yeah. So, people are different. And Josie, thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
That is a heart chakra popped.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Absolutely. And then Ace, keep it moving.
All right, we're to the throat chakra. So, Josie, what's a favorite lie that you have told, or extra karmic points if it's still in rotation?
Dun, dun, dun.
When you say favorite lie, what do you mean by favorite? Like it's a fun lie, or just like I lied about it a lot? Like,
You can pick whatever you want to share.
what's a fun lie? When I was a kid, I lied about stupid stuff, and thinking about that is very funny to me. Just like I would make up grandiose shit that I'm like, why would anybody? I used to tell people that my dad invented American Idol. That was crazy. No, he didn't. He's an IT network engineer. He did not invent American Idol. I don't think I'm a very bad liar because I mostly come up with shit like that.
That is a fun lie.
Yeah.
That's a fun, like those are fun.
I like the useless lies that nobody gets hurt, but it's like,
Yeah. But
spice it up.
it's also fun to think, like, as parents, it's fun to think that, like, some parent had to explain to their kid, her dad did not invent American Idol. Stop.
I think it's adult lie. I cheated in a previous relationship, and that I never came clean about that, and I felt very bad. At the end of it, it was like they didn't find out about it. Mm-hmm. And I considered, with like the guilt and stuff, I'm like, I should tell them. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, if I tell them, it's only gonna make them feel worse.
Now, so what kind of cheat was it? Was it like a one-time cheat, or was it like another relationship?
Wasn't another relationship, but it also wasn't a one-time thing. It was probably like a two or three.
We'll go with
time thing.
We'll go with
yeah, it's 3. It was some more than once thing. It was a relationship that I should have left the relationship, but I was not to excuse it. I was younger and I didn't really I was afraid of actually leaving it, but I had this connection with somebody else, but it wasn't like, they were also it was a bad situation. But yeah, so I ended up, I think it was like 3 times, and we ended up hooking up, and I never told them about it. And then, yeah, after we broke up, like 6 months later, I was still racked with guilt, and I'm like, I should tell them.
Wait, your boyfriend, they cheated too?
He had cheated previously.
So you telling him could have like taken some of the guilt off of him, like
I don't know that it would have done that. Because it was like he had cheated, I think like a year prior, something like that. Okay. 6 months or a year prior, and we like got past it, but I didn't actually get past it. Yeah. So then I had cheated. And then
so I just want to be clear about this, because I think what you thought you heard was different, because I think what she was saying is the person she was cheating with was also cheating on somebody. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're still in a relationship. That I feel more guilty about. I'm like, ooh, but I also think that they might kind of know. I don't know. I feel very weird about that, especially with cheating. I have a weird online presence, and I get a lot of people all the time, just dudes in my DMs saying things that I'm like, the wife in your fucking profile picture probably wouldn't like that you're saying this to me. And there's a part of me that, like, as a girl's girl, wants to, like, message them and be like, hello, this is happening. But then I also understand that every relationship has its own different dynamic, and, like, God forbid, what if they are, you know, somewhat monogamish couple where it's like they have almost a don't ask, don't tell thing, and then I'm telling, and then, you know, like, I don't know. And some people are like, I don't know. It's hard. That part's hard for me because I'm like, I don't want to meddle in somebody else's thing. But I also, if my boyfriend was doing that, I would want to know. Yeah. It's a prickly.
If you don't mind me asking, when I messaged you initially, before you looked at the message, were you like, fuck, what is this going to be?
No, you're a comedian. We know all the same people. It would be.
Yeah.
Also, just as a side note to you, you have the most impressive arms I've ever seen on a person. Because you're in a nice sweater right now, but I think the couple times I've seen you in passing, you've been in like tank tops, and I'm like, I feel safe with you around. Like, that's. So I think I'm saying that to say I think she could probably kick your ass, and
Well, she makes me feel safe as well.
That's good.
I'm very loyal for that reason alone. Yeah. So that's yeah. Well, are you just still absorbing the compliment over here?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't give off, like, I know you in person and you don't give off creepy vibes.
Thank you for saying
you're
that.
welcome.
Yeah.
You know instantly when you walk into a green room as a lady comedian that dresses the way that I do, that you know who is looking for more and who isn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, you definitely have never given off a vibe of like, hey, how you doing?
Hell yeah.
So yeah, when you messaged me, I was like, oh, that's so fun, a podcast. I love it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yay.
Dude, some people, ironically, I mean, we'll move on in a second, but it's funny because a lot of, you know, girls in comedy who, I mean, you said dress like you, but like, some people take it as as sexist towards them. It's like, where I'm just like, I just don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of male comedians that are out there to make people feel uncomfortable or to give them that type of attention, you know? And it's just like, I don't want to be any part of that at all.
Let me make sure I'm understanding. Are you telling me that there are some female comedians that think that you're sexist for not hitting on them?
Yes. Yes.
What?
Yes. It is one of the most retarded things.
What the fuck?
I am no different to any female comedian than I have been towards you. And some of them take that as like my lack of like that type of attention. Some people get really offended by it, and they're trying to connect the dots to what could be causing it.
I'm not gonna call anybody, or like, you know, I'm not gonna. That's insecurity.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable by, you know, the majority of dudes in comedy are creepy on some level.
They're so creepy.
I will say that. There's so many just socially inept people in comedy, and that's across the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many creepy dudes in comedy. There's so many people who reach out to me and are like, I would love to have you on a show. And they have never seen my stand-up. And then they get there and I do the show and they're like, that was actually really funny. I'm like, why the fuck did you book me for your room if you didn't think I could be funny? And I know why that is. And I don't care. You don't have to book me because you think I'm funny, but you'll book me back because you think that I'm funny.
Yeah.
I think it's a breath of fresh air when dude comics are not looking at you in some creepy kind of way or behaving in a certain way towards you. I don't know. There's three ways that I think guys can act in comedy towards women, and that is either they are not differentiating you from any man in the room and you are just instantly a bro. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's just very like I had a roommate from comedy back when I was in Baltimore. He, when I first met him, was looking at the ceiling when I was talking because he's like, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. I don't want anybody getting the wrong impression. I am respectful, and I appreciated that, and that's great. Yeah. And then they're leering and they're staring and they're getting real close to you, and you keep backing up, but they just keep adjusting their seat and they're inching towards you. So I think it's a breath of fresh air when you get one of the first two, because it's certainly not the majority.
And give me a second to recontextualize what I was saying about some of those. I think what it is I do treat them like bros, and I don't think some women really want that as much as they say they want that.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think I'm mean to women. I think what I'm saying is I'm mean to women. And they think that's sexist, those bitches.
I keep calling them dumbass bimbos, and they don't like it. It's so weird.
Yeah. I mean, because like if you want to be treated the same, like as much as I would tell one of my homies to shut the fuck up that was retarded, I'm going to say the same thing to you. And I guess that is sexist to some people. I'm sexist to women, and they think it's sexist, and I think that's rude. So
You just dealt with your issues.
Yeah, I just dealt with my issues. They're right. They're actually right.
Yeah.
They've been right.
And that's a throat chakra popped. I love it.
Yes.
This is great.
Yes. And by the way, that's the throat chakra popped.
Hell yeah.
Ace, keep it moving.
All right. We are to the third eye chakra. So we're out of the physical into the metaphysical. So Josie, what's something that you used to always think about as separate, but as you've gotten older, you've learned that it's really the same?
Can you get a little more specific with that?
Do you have an example?
Yeah. So you thought something was separate.
Yeah.
But then as you get... would you like an example? I can give you an example.
Yeah.
So an example that somebody has said on here, and it's an example that we always use in this section if somebody needs an example, but friends and family. People would think that when they were younger, friends and family were two separate entities, but as they get older, they realize that their friends are like their family, because of the relationship that they develop with them. So, I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be that, but,
I like that. Yeah, that makes sense. I think, that's crazy because it's such a big, all these questions are so big and so open-ended. It's like, God, the possibilities for the answers are just like massive. I think probably a good example that I've found is that I think the way that the core beliefs that you have about yourself, the way that you treat yourself, I really do think they kind of manifest and that the world sort of gives them back to you as a reflection. So I think that people often see their circumstances or their outlook on life as a completely separate entity from like how they view themselves and what they deal with on the inside, but I think they're way more connected than we think they are.
I like that answer.
that is probably the best answer we've ever gotten.
I know. That's the new example.
That's for sure the new example. Holy shit. Because nobody else is going to think that deeply. That's not going to be anybody else's answer.
Josie, you are overachieving.
Hell yeah.
For sure.
I'm so close to winning. I can feel it.
They can go anywhere. The best answer ever. It's like, holy shit. Yeah. I don't even think, that was such a good answer. I don't even have any follow-ups.
No, I want to change my life though. Like, yeah. I want to fix myself.
That's one of it's weird, like over the last couple of years, I've kind of figured out, I'm still figuring out my own sort of spiritual core beliefs, because I was raised Catholic as hell, and then when you get raised Catholic as hell, you usually rebel against that completely, and I definitely don't follow, I'm not religious with following one specific teaching or church, but I do, I believe in a higher power. But as I've explored, as I've kind of explored, the idea of manifestation, or the idea of, the connectivity of the universe and a oneness of, the collective being, I've definitely noticed that the challenges that I face in life are sort of my own internal struggles, reflected back. And that's not to say that it's your fault for anything bad that happens to you is you caused that, because that's just not true. There are things that are going to happen to you before you have the capacity to even understand or know yourself. But if you let yourself get caught into a mindset or a belief about yourself relating to things that you've been through, or the way that you view the world, it can really perpetuate itself. Yeah, and it's making me think of rewording
your outlook towards the world, and instead of saying this always happens to me, or to say like, oh, I have such shitty luck, it's like, no, I am shitty luck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like bad things always happen to me. It's like, no, you are bad things.
Absolutely.
Because for me, I would look at it the other way, because I always say that I'm the luckiest man on earth. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no, I am the luck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's that made me feel really good about my life.
Good. Good.
And it's like, man, like you're stuck with me. It's like, how do you contextualize that?
Well, you are the luck.
Okay.
So I'm stuck with luck.
I just wanted to hear a compliment.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah, that is man, I feel like minds were blown hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious, that was worth the price of admission. This is a free podcast. All right, Ace. Well, that's a third eye chakra blasted wide open.
Yes.
Good Lord. And Ace, take it away.
All right, we made it to the crown chakra.
We did.
All right.
So last question's a 2-part question.
Okay.
So Josie, what is one thing that you want to give up and why? And what would giving it up mean?
I mean, I would love to give up my anxiety. I would love to give up any remaining fear that kind of holds me back. And giving that up would mean that I'm just able to completely dive into what I want to do and the way that I want to live life, and there wouldn't be anything like holding me back or telling me that I can't. Yeah, pretty much every blockage that I have is either self-doubt or it's anxiety. And if I could push past those two things, I think I'd be capable of achieving all the things that I want to in this life.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, I think she won.
Yeah.
I think she won.
You look so shocked. I want to know what some of these other answers are so badly that you've gotten here. Can I ask what the worst answer you've ever gotten was? You don't have to name a name.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I don't know if there's bad answers, but people sometimes just like kind of ramble on. Like, I feel like you're very like succinct about it and like have a point to it. I feel like sometimes people just start talking and you're like, and what are you talking about? Like,
yeah, but they usually do come
they get there.
They get there.
Yeah.
They get there. You know, but again, you know, maybe possibly your experiences traveling or maybe your experiences with therapy, it seems like you have like a deeper awareness of yourself than a lot of people that come on there, you know? So was that fair to say?
Yeah, because I guess there's a lot of us asking questions to like probe and like there's not too much probing needed.
Yeah, but you've been very forthcoming.
Well, I will say this, is that at least with me, and I know that a lot of people who are more reluctant to get into their emotions will experience this in therapy, where like they can vocalize it and they are very self-aware and they can tell you just, you know, the actual like details of it all. But then when it comes to unlocking the emotion that's behind it, they have a very hard time with that. And that is something that I struggle with. So I can tell you what I am, why I am that way, how it came to be, all of the details there. Like I can make sense of it, but it'll still be something that makes me struggle because I haven't been able to like actually access the emotion underneath. So if you grew up in a, you know, in a house or whatever, if you grew up thinking that you needed to repress your emotions in some way, that can often lead you there. And my therapist currently, I just switched therapists and she called me out on it immediately and I was like, ah, shit, you're a good one, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're getting my money's worth. So
yeah,
but that is, I think that's something is a blessing because you can understand the why, which is a struggle for some people, but it's also a curse because it's like, oh shit, well I know what it is, how do I feel it?
Yeah,
damn it.
Well, I mean, I gotta start remembering to let people. Do you have time to stick around for the Patreon?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll say this. Well, we'll see how you do on the Patreon.
All
we'll see
right.
if you can keep this streak going. But also, how do you feel now after this process?
I feel really good.
Yeah?
This was nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. You guys have very much created like a good, peaceful energy and welcoming energy to do something like this.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
I worked really hard to do that.
It's noticeable. Like, you can tell, like, this was set up in a way to make people feel comfortable enough to do that. And you two have a very good dynamic with being able to make it inviting.
Josie, you're the most brilliant, spectacular person we've ever had on this podcast.
And that's how you win Chakra Poppers, guys. Kiss my ass, every other guest they've ever had. I win.
Yes, and of course, that's $1 gets you all of our exclusive content on our Patreon, which is the counter to this podcast, and we call Chakra Poppers After Dark, where we're going to enlighten Josie's shadow self. But we also do some fight commentary and analysis on Ansley's jiu-jitsu matches. And there's one up there right now called Crazy Cat Lady, which is a really fun experience. It was Ansley's most controversial jiu-jitsu match today. Oh, I don't even know if I even mention this anymore, but this is a world champion sitting next to me. Jiu-jitsu world champion. Yeah. And Josie, do you have anywhere where people can find you?
Yeah, all of my social media is at Josie Marcellino, which just is the look at how that is spelled in the title of wherever you're viewing this. And yeah, when does it come out?
I think 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I will be at Magooby's Joke House the end of January, I believe January 25th through the 27th. And then I will be out of the country for 2 more months, but then I'll be back and I'll have some more dates and stuff like that, and it'll be a good time. So come out and see me, follow me wherever you follow people.
Yeah, definitely hop on that social media so you can see Josie, where she's hard to find. This is a hard woman to pin down. Yeah, and thanks again for watching and listening. We love you guys, and we are out.
Good night.